Good afternoon. Welcome to this afternoon session of the Student Ethics Symposium. My name is Brian Birch. I'm the director of the Center for the Study of Ethics here at UVU. And we have the pleasure each year of hosting a symposium that really showcases the great work of our students here on campus. And we started our virtual symposium this morning at 9 o'clock and have had some great sessions on various aspects of media ethics. And it's my pleasure to introduce our award-winning Ethics Bowl team. They're one of the crown jewels of UVU student work on campus, and I want to publicly congratulate them on all the good work they've done for many years now. And I want to recognize the work of Jeff Nielsen in advising the team, and Caitlin Russell in assisting with that, and all the student involvement that comes with it. It's something that we're very proud of in the Philosophy and Humanities Department, and obviously in the Center for the Study of Ethics. So kudos to all of you, and I think that those of you who are watching will be able to see what stellar work is being done here on campus. So without further ado, I will turn the time over to Caitlin Russell, who will introduce today's theme and format, et cetera. So Caitlin, take it away.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Brian. I too have some kind words to share about our team and our coach, but wanted to take a moment to address a little bit what Ethics Bowl is. So Ethics Bowl is a debate competition of sorts that focuses on clarity, organization, ethical analysis, and deliberative thoughtfulness. As such, it's more so a personal test of civic engagement, critical thinking skills, and applied ethics. In an Ethics Bowl match, teams are not assigned a pro or a con side of an ethical issue. Rather, each team's goal is to ensure it has identified the ethically relevant considerations raised, and then analyze the importance of the considerations and deliberate to an agreement on positions that the team feels it can explain and defend. Before I introduce our amazing students that competed this year, I wanted to first take a moment to introduce our coach, Jeff Nielsen. He is a model of the spirit of Ethics Bowl and has gently guided our teams over the years to top scores. Jeff truly embodies our university's missions of exceptional care and exceptional accountability, and as a result has empowered our students that are here today to achieve exceptional results. This past year, the students that's here today placed 6th in the nation out of nearly 200 teams, excuse me, at their National Intercollegiate Ethics Bowl competition, beating out high-profile schools such as Harvard and Stanford. These students propel our university forward, and we're incredibly proud of their accomplishments. So I'd like to introduce our students, and then I'll turn the time over to one of our esteemed teammates, Timberland, to introduce the topics for today. So we have Rowan Hadlock. Rowan is a senior in our philosophy department with a philosophy major, and they also are an IA for ethics and values. Adam Cook is also a senior philosophy major and works in our philosophy and humanities department. Hash Brown is a senior philosophy major and IAs for ethics and values. We have a bit of a trend going on with Ethics Bowl. Timberland Shaw, I believe you're a junior philosophy major and ethics minor, and also IA for ethics and values. Elena Sapp is a junior philosophy major and ethics minor and a student fellow for our Center of the Study of Ethics. And Claire Montgomery is also a junior philosophy major. And that's our team that competed this year. So today we'll be talking about drug advertising, and Timberland's going to introduce and explain the case a little bit before we jump in to our standard Ethics Bowl format. I can't hear you, Timberland.
You say hi. Now? Are we good?
We can hear you, but there's some feedback. So somebody else, Rowan, maybe you need to mute.
Okay. I don't know if we can. Is it better now?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay, sweet. So the case, drug ads can be habit forming, is talking about, that's going to be disorienting. Is talking about a 1976 Supreme Court ruling that allowed drug ads to be something that companies can do because it's a right through the 14th and First Amendments. For a long time, this just led to things like newspaper ads and things like that. However, in the 1980s, it was a lot easier to make television and radio ads. And so once this happened, companies fully took advantage of it. They were no longer required to to talk about all of the side effects, but just some of the major ones. And they were shown that this could very much increase their own their own income. And so they do this, and the only other country to follow along on this is New Zealand. A lot of scientists argue and doctors have argued that this is incredibly harmful. It leads people to reach out to get medication that's way more expensive than they need to, and there's a lot cheaper alternatives. And also, while it has maybe helped a little bit in getting certain people the information that they need, most of the time people are coming in and getting with information that's incorrect, or that they don't necessarily need this type of medication. And it was shown in, I think, 2016 to 18 that these companies were spending almost $20 billion on drug ads. And so that's what this case is. Normally, the judge would be able to have this information themselves. They would have read it beforehand. We wouldn't normally go over the case such as this, but in these circumstances, we wanted to talk about it.
Okay, so yes, this wouldn't have happened in a regular ethics bowl because you would have had the case material. But for an ethics bowl competition, usually what it looks like is we have our team that's all lined up on kind of one row, and we'll be directly across from another team. And this is how the format goes, and this is what we'll be doing today. So there will be a question that will be given to us by the moderator, which is Caitlin Russell in this instance. We will then be given time to prepare a presentation, a very small amount of time. We'll then present for 10 minutes on our answer to the question that we were given. And then the opposing team, or the other team across from us, will be given time to prepare. And then also they will present to us. And then we will respond to what they presented. And then there's usually a judge question and answer period, but we won't be doing that today. Instead, we will be taking questions from the audience or from the comment section in the live stream. So without further ado, I'll pass to the moderator to ask our question for today's competition.
Perfect. Thank you, Hash. So I'm still having a bit of a struggle with breakout rooms. So while you guys do your conferral period, just mute your microphones and we'll do it that way for now. And hopefully I can figure this out later. So today's question for case 5, which is drugs ads can be habit forming, is should direct marketing of pharmaceutical drugs to consumers be banned? You'll have 2 minutes to prepare your presentation and you may begin now.
Should have had Jeopardy music for the audience to listen to while they're conferring or something.
I was actually thinking something similar of I don't know, I feel like we need a little something going on.
We are good to go whenever, actually.
Okay, perfect. Then I will. Okay, do you guys want visual warnings, verbal warnings, keeping our own time? What do you think?
Visual would be preferred.
Okay, perfect. So you'll have 10 minutes to present your answer to the question, and I'll give you a visual warning at 3 and 1 minute, and you may begin now.
There is this pill, and if you take it, it will heal just about anything that is bothering you. Or at least that's what 8-year-old me thought. You see, my mother, as clever as she was, she realized the power of sugar pills and the placebo effect. Now, you don't have to be 8 years old for the placebo effect to work. It works on everyone. In fact, it works so well that it's the standard we use to measure the effectiveness of drugs in the medical field. And it just goes to show how tenuous the psychology of little pills are. We are very poor judges of how well drugs are working and what drugs we should be using. This is why we have trained medical professionals prescribing drugs. And is also why our team takes the position that we do, which is in response to the question, should direct marketing from pharmaceuticals to consumers be banned? We answer, yes, it should be banned, because we are not equipped to make those kinds of decisions. That should be something that involves a medical professional that is educated on the subject. Now, we will explain our argument further, but first it's very important to outline who will be affected by this, and then also the framework from which we will build our argument. And for that, I'm going to pass to my teammate, Rowan.
Thank you, Hash. As a team, we believe it is our moral responsibility to provide others with justification we feel they could not reasonably reject. For us, this takes the form of guiding ethical principles under which all persons are of equal and inherent moral worth, deserve to be treated with care and dignity in order to live a life wherein suffering is minimized and they get what they are ethically owed. Within this case, we have appealed to two different ethical principles, the principles of respect and care. The principle of respect states that we should always act in such a way as to treat all persons with human dignity and never use them as a mere means to an end, but always treat them as ends in themselves. The principle of care states that we should act in such a way as to cultivate trust, encourage cooperation, and minimize as much as possible the potential for future conflict between all stakeholders. Now, keeping these principles in mind, we have identified three separate categories of stakeholders within this case. The first being pharmaceutical companies who make and market the drugs and have a motivation of profit and sales rather than taking care of the patients. This second category would be consumers, who we've identified to be the most vulnerable because they're the ones who see the ads, who then might go to their doctors and say, well, I really would like to try this medication without knowing much about it, which Adam will elaborate on. And then finally, we wanted to talk about healthcare providers and the role that they play and a focus that we want to have on building relationships between the person who is more equipped to talk about medication and patients. Now, to elaborate on our argument, I will pass to my teammate, Adam.
Thank you. So one of the first things that we need to establish is that we are working within a capitalist economic system. And so you might be wondering if we are asking if we need to ban all advertising. The answer to this is no, not at least under this framework. That would be a separate consideration. This is a little bit different because we're dealing with a very particular kind of product. And as we've tried to illustrate with the placebo conversation, this is the kind of product that is very difficult for the consumer to intuit. And this is important. We, in our capitalist society, we intuit the value of something and decide whether or not the price that is being offered to us is, is requisite to the intuited value of the product. Now, you can challenge that system itself, but by and large, it at least kind of works. This, although, is a case in which it just clearly does not work. Price tags that are given to drugs do not correlate in any psychologically meaningful way to the actual effectiveness of the drugs. We ourselves, you can take a pill, and depending on the pill, maybe you'll be aware of the effects of the pill, but by and large, you only become aware of the effects of, pharmaceutical drugs after the fact, kind of days later or weeks or something like that. Again, there's variation within this, but the point is that the only access that we have to the effectiveness of these drugs, by and large, are the statistical analyses that have been done about them, not personal introspection. Thus, we should be trying to regulate and distribute them according to these statistics. And the problem is that direct consumer advertising runs in, directly contrary to this process. And we find this very concerning, problematic, all of the above. Just to remind you, we are talking about pharmaceutical companies here who have a motivation to exploit in the name of money, as well as a situation where consumers are being turned against their own healthcare providers. And we see this as a great threat to developing the caring relationships that we believe should exist between consumers and the healthcare system in general. Now, to talk about some objections potentially to this position, I'll pass my teammate Elena.
Thank you, Adam. So one of the main objections that's brought up in the case of that we normally would have all read and the team we're responding to here is that the right, I suppose, to advertise is associated with the First and 14th Amendments. And so in responding to saying that we shouldn't have those advertisements, we're having to say, well, how does this not violate amendment rights? And our team's response to this is that we think that the principle that the amendments are based on can be taken and applied in a similar way that we're applying our principles of respect here, that we're trying to protect the people who are being marketed to from being exploited, and that in this specific case, this is speech that is with the intention of making money. And so we have to take into account the psychology of the consumers, and that, maybe with this specific product, we don't think that a free market is going to lead to the most ethical solution. We think that we should have a greater protection in place for the consumers who are being marketed to, and that we think that we need to take greater things into account when considering what kind of things we're talking about, not just a general saying of talking about protecting free speech. So another objection we have to this case is, what about bad doctors? We seem to be putting a lot of emphasis on how much we should trust medical authorities by saying that there's less freedom for the consumers to be picking for themselves which medications they would like to have. And so in recognition of a huge problem here, we want to acknowledge that there's a lot that goes into kind of the idea of authority that we have surrounding medicine. And there's a lot of good reasons to be skeptical of both pharmaceutical companies in general and an authority of medicine, and looking at history. But we think that this is probably going to lead to the most ethical solution. And if we can both increase trust in the medical authority, but also improve those institutions to be worthy of trust, we think we should respond to those problems at the same time as we say increasing trust in this area is going to lead to the most ethical outcome. And to conclude, I'll pass to my teammate Claire.
Thank you, Elena. I'd also like to thank the rest of my team for their part in this presentation. I'd also like to thank our moderator, Caitlin Russell, as well as our coach, Jeffrey Nielsen, once again. And finally, I'd like to thank everybody here who came to watch us and participate in this ethics symposium. So to summarize this case, drug advertisements and the medical field in particular occupy a unique feature in our society and in our markets, in that medicine is something where we require expertise in order to make judgments about the effectiveness of medications, what kind of treatments will be effective. And so therefore, it will always be the case that patients will in some ways face a knowledge gap between what they know, what they're prepared for, and what sort of medical expertise. And that's why we rely on doctors. And we're in a situation where the question is, what body should be, or what authority, or what person with that knowledge who's trained to do this kind of statistical analysis should be providing that information to patients? Based off of our principles and care and respect, we believe that rather than pharmaceutical companies and advertising agencies, it should be doctors who are in a position to have a direct relationship of trust with patients and a more clear incentive to be promoting good health outcomes for patients.
Thank you. That is time.
Thanks, but
All right. Can everybody hear me? Okay, perfection. So we will have our responding team confer for a minute, and we might give breakout rooms a try. Is that correct, Brian?
I'm going to give it a try.
Okay, we'll see how that goes. And when we come back, the responding team will have 5 minutes to respond to Team A's presentation.
Caitlin, can I have everyone change their screen name to their given name so that I can know who to assign where?
Yes.
I am not sure where to change my name at, but I just need to be with the B team.
Does anyone know what team I'd be with?
B.
B team then. Thank you.
Well,
All right, people are slowly disappearing, so I'm assuming that it's working.
Yes, most are assigned so far as I can tell.
I still need to be moved over there as well, and I think Leslie.
Now people look like they're conferring, and it's been over a minute. So I'm gonna go with we'll close the rooms and respond to the best of our abilities. So there should be an option on the bottom of your screen, Brian, to close rooms, and then it'll bring everybody back after. Perfect. Okay, is that everyone? I feel like we're missing a couple.
Why?
30 seconds, Caitlin.
Oh, okay.
Is everyone back?
Hey, looks good. All right, so Team B, you'll have 5 minutes to respond to Team A's presentation. And if it works for you, I'll just similarly give a 3-minute and a 1-minute visual warning on the screen. And you may begin now.
I'd like to thank everybody who's here today. We'd like to thank Team A for their introduction of this case, because it's a really important thing that I think that we need to discuss and kind of get more information on. And I would also like to thank the judges here, and especially our coach, Jeff, who has been our rock through all of this. So we actually formed a very similar idea to this case. We liked the plans that were brought up, and we also liked the use of respect here. We do have some questions and some clarifications we would like to dig into, and I'm really looking forward to the other team kind of doing that. So to kind of pass off, I'm going to pass to Leslie, who's going to dig into some questions that she came up with. And then after that, we're going to see if Matthew and anyone else who has these questions is also ready. So right now, pass over to Leslie.
Oh, hi. So I think the main questions I was thinking about kind of comes back to the issue of why the United States kind of has this problem of drug advertising where other countries have it banned against the law. And looking at it seems like a lot of the reasoning comes back to this idea that leads to more educated consumers. And so I kind of, the question I have kind of relates to this idea, how can patients and doctors how can we as a society cultivate better relationships and education among patients that sort of counteracts any possible necessity of these advertisements and makes it so this isn't a problem, I guess. And then I guess I'll pass it to Matthew if has anything to say. Sorry.
Okay, thanks, Leslie. You actually asked exactly what I was going to ask. But I guess just to go more into that, using like the principles of care and respect, did you guys as a team talk about, I guess, any way to kind of lessen this knowledge gap between the doctor and the patient that Claire brought up? And just there seems to be a power imbalance where the consumer is really knowledgeless and doesn't have, they're just totally relying on the doctor to be like a good caring physician. So yeah, I guess just to kind of go into that, did you guys have any kind of options where we can kind of maybe lessen this knowledge gap and give the consumer a little more power within the relationship? And then I'll pass to, I don't know if anyone, Kelsey or Celine, had something to ask as well.
My sentiments were very similar to Leslie's as well as Matthew's. Just making sure that like there's like education, right, for consumers, because sometimes, although doctors are professionals in their fields, sometimes it's also good to have awareness of certain drugs. And although some of them can be more pushed depending on the doctor, and a lot of times doctors also will be coerced to push drugs from like the drugs marketing company, right? Like, so they're going to push a certain drug because to a doctor and say, hey, this drug, we want you to try and get more people to use this drug, right? How would that be different where it's just the doctor understand, like telling the patient? Would there be more of that because there wouldn't be as much advertising to be able to help with that as well?
And I'll take the last minute. My comment pretty much follows Kelsey's, where how do we make sure that doctors are not, now that they have more power to choose which drugs are going to be used with patients, how are we going to make sure that the drugs aren't incentivizing that they be used over other drugs? And then also, while we're creating this knowledge gap between patients and doctors, doctors are not always the best at advocacy for their patients, and recognizing and understanding issues that their patients may be facing. While in many cases, for instance, like physical injuries, it can be really easy to say, I have pain here, here, and here. How can you help me? With others, it might require a lot more introspection, where the doctor might not actually be the situated person that will have the best understanding of that individual's physiology or psychology. And so how do we get that information? Similar to what's already been stated, how do we get that information out to the patients so that they can then go to their doctors and have that be more of a filtering process rather than a gate that needs to be translated completely? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Celine. Since our team A is all in the same room, I think we can just forego breakout rooms for this section, and you guys will have a minute to confer and then 5 minutes to respond to team B's response, and you may begin conferring now. Okay, and that is time. Love to see there's like 5 hashes on my screen with all the cameras. Okay, and you guys may begin your 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Sorry, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it time for us to begin? Yes. Okay. Wonderful. Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. So first of all, we would just like to say thank you so much to Team B for that wonderful feedback. We really look forward to tackling these questions and to the opportunity to elaborate a little bit further on our argument. So first, to talk a little bit about cultivating education and relationships to get rid of this necessity you talked about, pass to Hash. After that, Claire is going to address some of your concerns that you had about power imbalances. And then finally, Adam is going to talk about this problem of incentivization of doctors that you brought up to further that talk. Hash.
Wonderful. So this is a wonderful question, how to cultivate relationships and get better education in this sphere. I would like to first start off just by pointing out that the response we provide to this question is a position in the negative. We're saying that we should ban a particular type of thing because it's ineffective. But we would say that there are a lot of things that we can do in addition to banning this that would make it a better situation for the consumer and for doctors. And one of those is just having education go through the doctors more. Having the doctor be someone who is informing you is a great way to build trust between you and your doctor, and it simultaneously provides better education. Right now, a lot of doctors take the basic position that they're just there to provide care and to fix people's problems, and there's very little beyond that. But we would like to see a little bit more education and awareness being spread through doctors, because they are kind of situated as the ones that are educated and put in the place where they could be providing information to help build trust, and then also to help their patients be informed consumers. And to talk more about the power imbalance that could come out of that, I'm going to pass to Claire.
All right, thank you, Hash. As far as the power imbalance, or it's also been referred to in this discussion as the knowledge gap, there is an element to which this is going to be inevitable, just on the basis that medicine and pharmaceuticals are complicated and takes years of training in order to properly understand how to judge the effectiveness of these medications, which ones are effective in which situations, and for what treatments they should be prescribed for. So there is certainly an element to which there is simply requires an element of trust between doctors and other healthcare providers and patients. As for what other avenues other than direct pharmaceutical advertisements can patients go through to get more knowledge other than just a doctor, so they're not relying on this singular source of information, there's always the classic, you can consult another doctor and get a second opinion. There are also communities of people who maybe experience similar symptoms, similar problems that you can go to for information. Overall, their place in the industry and the incentive they have to push their particular drugs leaves pharmaceutical companies as particularly poorly suited to being that person that patients rely on for healthcare information. And it's because they're so poorly situated that we believe that these direct advertising of pharmaceutical drugs is harmful. So to answer a few more questions about sort of what the role of doctors here should be and how you deal with potentially things like bad doctors, I'm going to go to my teammate, Adam.
Cool. So this is an extraneous problem that is obviously closely related, which is the problem of incentivization of doctors directly. And since it's related, we're happy to talk about it. We would just point out first, emphasize that even if there are problems with doctors, even if they're not perfectly situated, they're still better situated than drug companies to act as caring people towards consumers. And the problem of incentivization with doctors largely lies with money as well, and could be addressed along similar lines. We just need to basically have more protections against things like undue lobbying by pharmaceutical companies directly towards doctors and the like. And then that will allow for the fostering of this caring relationship more and more. So thank you.
Okay, and that concludes our ethics bowl portion of this. And to my understanding, we were just opening the floor to some Q&A. Is that how you wanted to do this, Elena? Or
Actually, I'll probably play the role of judge for a minute and ask a couple of questions as I do in the normal round. Then we can open it up to other thoughts. So, and then Caitlin, if you have any questions, you can ask them as well. But yeah, I wanted to begin by asking, so is your solution then just to ban advertising? Maybe in a broader sense, what's kind of the goal, the objective of your approach to this question? Is it purely negative to ban advertising, or is there some positive outcome you would like to see as well? And I want to go back to that issue of doctors. I've been visiting a lot of doctors recently for various issues. And I'm not very impressed with their ability to articulate or diagnose situations or to even talk about the various therapies or medicines that are available. So are you being a little bit over optimistic that doctors will pick up this charge? Or do you have some way of maybe some plan to educate doctors more? So I guess my question is, what is the objective? What would you like to see happen when it comes to drugs, patients, and doctors? What's the ideal outcome? And why, persuade me you're not being too over optimistic when you talk about doctors and their ability to care for their patients, and more than just a, let me fix you kind of a way, if that makes any sense.
I'll just jump in then. These are excellent thoughts. The first thing I want to bring up, Jeff, in response to your question, is that we see this as kind of a cyclical problem in many respects. Part of the issue with doctors being able to be good informants is that this system is systematically making them not as good of informants as they could be. Because as a society, we've come to kind of rely on direct marketing from pharmaceutical companies as a way of becoming aware of new drugs. I don't think, and I'm not an insider, but my impression of the system is that there isn't a strong communication that occurs between new therapies that are available and doctors. Instead, doctors often will become aware of new therapies through their consumers, because that's kind of how we've set up this epistemic structure. So what we're generally thinking is that if you were to remove the direct marketing, then the positive thing that you're looking for is we would want there to be a much more objective and dispassionate sort of connection between the development of therapies, the studies that go into how effective they are, and that information getting to doctors. I do want to point out that this problem of knowledge is not something that's unique to this field. This is just so complex, and unfortunately, doctors are never going to be able to be perfectly situated. Like, we all have to rely on authorities outside of ourselves for our information. And so there's a fine line we have to walk between, being able to go to specialists and then still be able to, anyway, so there's just a huge epistemic conversation as well. But hopefully that outlines what we'd say is how that's related to the problem and what the positive solution would look like.
And to that, I would also like to add that we think that the direct marketing is something that should be banned, but I think we would also be the first to advocate for empowering doctors to be more in the driver's seat when it comes to all of the decisions relating to health and how we do the medical system. They're the ones that are on the ground. They're the ones that are working with patients. And right now, it kind of is that everyone lives in the shadows of the pharmaceutical companies, and they essentially dictate what happens in the entire nation. And we would really like to see the doctors be put in more of a position to make decisions about how what therapies are used and how education is spread around, and just how we do this whole process. Because right now they're kind of just the worker bee for pharmaceutical companies, and we'd like to switch that dynamic.
Thank you. Great responses. Appreciate that. I'll concede the rest of my time because I know there's only like 5 minutes left, and there might be some other people who have questions for the team.
Jeff, this is Brian. We haven't had any questions come in from the YouTube feed at this point.
That's cool. Well, let's just kind of, we only have a few minutes left, so why don't we kind of switch gears a bit and have one of you respond to just your overall sense of how the Ethics Bowl kind of informs your ethical worldviews, how it's maybe helped you think through moral issues in a clear way. I guess something like that.
Yeah, I'd like to take this one actually. Given that before I did and joined up with the ethics bowl. Way back when I was in high school, I was more familiar. I actually competed in policy debate. And it's given me an insight into the way these sort of different extracurriculars shape how you think about things. Where I came into the ethics bowl from that background, really only concerned with approaching these cases from the standpoint of, what is going to be the most effective way to win as many rounds as possible. And sort of without sort of being aware of it, over time, my perspective has gradually changed to be a lot more invested in actually caring about like the ethical outcomes, not only in terms of taking a position I agree with, but with wanting to say something that I think is important to say. And I think that all of the people on my team share that sentiment. And I think that sort of mindset has not just been constrained to the ethics bowl, but has shaped how I think about positions and advocate for them. Sort of broadly speaking, when you spend so much time doing this kind of an activity, it affects the way you think about things and see things. And in the case of ethics bowl, I think it does that in a positive way.
I would also like to add to that working with a team towards solutions to real problems that you care about. It's surprising how much better your solutions are just by adding 5 people into the mix to brainstorm. I've been very impressed and really invested in some of the stuff that our team has come up with in ways that did not expect to come out of just an extracurricular. But like the conclusions we came to are things I now care about and I want to see happen in the world. And that's a really cool process to be a part of.
If we have just another 30 seconds or so, one of my favorite things about the Ethics Bowl is that we are appealing to these principles, and there's more to our meta-ethical framework here, but just general principles of respect, care, beneficence, and fairness. And what I like about this is that everyone can understand what this means, and despite the differences we have, coming together as a group to discuss, what the solution to something is and the ways that we can kind of like come into conflict, we actually do, end up having these similar moral sentiments surrounding similar ideas, and that it kind of just increases my faith and practice in other conversations that I have in other circumstances.
Well, I just want to thank all of you for your contributions to this session and for showcasing some terrific engaging argument and debate. So congratulations on all of your work. And for those who are tuning in, we look forward to the second session hosted by the Ethics Bowl team coming up in just a few minutes. So